and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup with a news bulletin. The snow has stopped in New York.
Oh, I see. That. You get a better view than I do.
At 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday. That is when we are taping this.
Did you make it stop?
No, but I have a golf tee time on Friday, so I'm just hoping for a quick melt.
Well, let's tell our viewers about what's happening in the LGBTQ world.
What a good idea.
Are you sitting down? The U.S. Supreme Court let a pro-transgender ruling stand.
It's shocking, I know. They're doing a number of things that are a little encouraging, but I'm not, I'm not giving up my skepticism about them. On the other hand, Mr. Trump has fulfilled our stereotypes and prejudices by rushing to solidify anti-LGBTQ regulations before leaving office.
I don't know why he's rushing since he won the election. The new head of the campaign to protect and maybe even expand the Democratic majority in Congress is an out gay representative.
Fingers crossed. A fierce gay student in West Texas has been suspended by his high school because he wore nail polish.
Calling the ACLU, the first out gay professional wrestler, Patterson, has died at the age of 79. What a story.
It is a hell of a story. MSNBC has announced its first regular out gay weekend anchor.
A woman found a way to propose to her girlfriend through the New York Times.
This is my favorite little story. Anti-gay bigots on 2 continents are caught with their pants down trying to get into someone else's. Andy wrote that headline, and I might not have written it that way. We told you about one of them last week.
Well, why don't
update and a new story.
All right. And the AIDS community is very enthused about Biden's pick to head the Centers for Disease Control. We will talk about that in AIDS news. But we start with the Supreme Court.
Wow.
They declined an appeal from parents in Oregon who wanted to ban trans students from school locker rooms and restrooms and only use facilities that correspond with their sex at birth, not their gender identity. The court didn't give any reason for not hearing the case. Now, Chase Strangio of the ACLU, who was trans himself, tweeted beforehand, "Please send all prayers that they deny cert." Something more appropriate for the 700 Club from the other direction.
Hey, we'll take all the help we can get at this point.
Prayer might have helped here.
Maybe a non-denominational.
Well, when you got 6 Catholics on the Supreme Court.
It was a little shocking because we've become very cynical about this Supreme Court. 3 Trump nominees who have shown themselves to be pretty bad, although one of them voted for the Bostock decision.
Sometimes when they want to get us, they wait for a better case.
Well, that's a little overthinking, I think. I think that, in fact, once you get on the Supreme Court, some people get some kind of conscience and look at these cases. They're independent. They have a lifetime appointment. He can't get to them anymore. They're not working for him on the election stuff yet. Anyway, that was always my fear, that no matter what happened below them, these cases would get to the Supreme Court and he stood a decent chance of having them side with him. But I think they are looking now at their reputations.
Well, I listened to Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, on the Sean Hannity show. They are quite sure they are going to win this case where they're suing other states not to certify their elections. Wow. And Ken Paxton, of course, belongs in prison at this point. He's got his whole staff signing documents saying he's a crook.
Well, I saw Dana Nessel, the Attorney General of Michigan, talking about what a joke this is.
Out lesbian.
Well, it got me to thinking about how many out lesbian attorney generals there are in the United States. We have Maura Healey in Massachusetts. We have Dana Nessel in Michigan. We have a closeted version in New York. And who knows how many elsewhere. If you have a lesbian attorney general of your state, let us know. We want to keep up the count.
I don't want to skip around too much here, but of course that brings up the Pete Buttigieg watch, who is the person most likely to be appointed to a cabinet post, although maybe not. Everybody's
the most likely out gay person to be.
Yes. And but it made me think, wait a minute, usually these positions go to out lesbians. So why aren't they getting appointed?
Or closeted lesbians. We know that whole history.
Well, that's true. But, in terms of Pete, they keep saying he's in line for an important post. He did, endorse, as soon as he dropped out, he endorsed Biden. He wanted to be the UN ambassador. They didn't want him for that. Now Biden was looking at him for Commerce or EPA. They offered him, apparently, Veterans Administration. He said, no, I don't want Veterans Administration. And now they're looking at ambassador to China.
Well, I think ambassador to China would be a very interesting place to put him.
He speaks Mandarin?
Well,
I mean, he speaks about 100 languages, so why not?
Yeah, I want to say yes, but I'm not sure whether that's on the list. It's possible. And I think he would be an interesting pick to deal with the Chinese. So I think that would be a good place to put it.
Let's go back to the Trump administration and the elections to some extent. By the way, Pat Robertson and a host of evangelical charlatans are promising their followers that Jesus will make sure that Trump is inaugurated on January 20th. In fact, this week, Pat asked Jesus to steal the election, even though that's against the seventh commandment.
Well, there's no question we have a slow-rolling attempt at revolution in this country and overthrow of the government. And I understand they want to overthrow the government. It's interesting to me that they are such traitors to the Constitution that they want to overthrow the government. And I think we ought to be taking that a lot more seriously, not because I think Trump is going to succeed in this, but I think long term, there is a real question in this country about where we are headed. And
we're boiling over. And some people think it will completely boil over when the Supreme Court rejects the Texas challenge to the election.
Well, I think it may boil over when Republicans take back control of the House and the Senate in 2 years. I think that's a real possibility.
We've been saying for a long time we need a new system, but we seem to be too lazy to forge one, which is what's required.
It's tough to forge a new system when you have half the population wanting to completely overturn the government and descend into anarchy and chaos.
It's happened plenty of other places in the world. Some of them have been lucky enough to have velvet revolutions where there was no violence, but it can be done.
Well,
all right. But Trump's.
I don't think we've reached consensus on that, but go ahead.
Trump's not finished. The U.S. Department of Labor under Secretary Eugene Scalia, he the son of the former right-wing anti-gay Supreme Court judge, solidified an anti-LGBT rule letting federal contractors claim religious exemptions from federal non-discrimination laws. Lambda Legal Defense called it a sledgehammer against LGBT people, Q people, women, religious minorities, and others, giving tax-funded contracts to religious bigots. Contractors could deny benefits to gay couples if they wanted to under this system.
Well, this all goes back to the Supreme Court Hobby Lobby decision, which said that non-religious organizations could claim a religious point of view to discriminate against their employees. In that case, it was about funding birth control for their employees, but that just reeked of the opportunity to extrapolate in subsequent years, and that's exactly what's happening here. The good news is that this is a Labor Department rule. The Biden administration can get rid of it.
Well, they're trying to make it as hard to get rid of all these things as they can by entrenching them in various ways. But we will see. After all, the federal court just reinstated DACA, which was encouraging, but that hasn't gotten to
they can do all they want about trying to hammer these into the ground, but the fact is that they are not passing them in ways that can't be overturned.
Okay, let's.
Since we mentioned.
Can we just go back to the election for a second?
Sure.
AP VoteCast poll they also found that 25% of LGBTQ people voted for Trump and 73% for Biden, higher than the GLAAD poll, which found 14% for Trump. But here's the thing. In the swing states, the vote for Biden was 89% for LGBTQ voters, 89% in Arizona, 88% in Georgia, 70% in Wisconsin, 73% in Nevada, 78% in Pennsylvania, and
Michigan,
which makes us the swing voters. And of course, everybody can claim that who did it. Obviously, the biggest vote came out of Black women for Biden, but it is significant.
I don't think, significant, yes. I'm more concerned of looking internally at us and where we're voting. I don't think we need hierarchies of who swung the election. Everybody contributed to that. But I am concerned that we have still significant amounts of our community voting for Trump. I expect it, but I don't like it.
Well, the person who is tasked with taking care of that now is Sean Patrick Maloney, the out gay representative from upstate New York. He's been there for a while. He represents a Trump district, and he won the position of heading the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. A very tough assignment for 2022 when parties normally get hurt in the midterm elections. But he won this election 119 to 107 over Tony Cardenas of Los Angeles. It's a very tall order because we're facing redistricting, losing seats in a lot of blue states. Gerrymandering is going to be high on the list because Republicans control most state legislatures. So it's going to be tough. But, I think he seems to have won by saying how data-driven he was going to be. How are they going to pitch this? We should have him on and ask him, how are they going to pitch this in 2022?
Well, I'll tell you how they're going to pitch it. This is regarded as a victory of the moderate over the progressive wings of the party. Cardenas, or Cardenas, however he pronounces it, is the more progressive and, of course, Latinx. And I think a lot of us are a little surprised that the Democrats would miss the opportunity to put a progressive Latinx man in a position of power like that. Sean Patrick Maloney won because his pitch is, I've won 5 times in a Trump district by being a moderate who voted with Trump a number of times while in Congress. And the problem with that is that you set up the fight again. How do you win these elections? By being progressive and inspiring people with a more progressive agenda, or by being much more middle of the road and saying, don't worry, I will make conservative votes. And of course, it depends on where you are, and no one has any easy, hard, and fast answers to that. But we lost a number of seats. The Democrats lost a number of seats in this election, and the margin in the House is slimmer and slimmer, especially as Biden appoints members of the House to his administration, and we lose more of those seats.
Well, we can get those seats back, but it'll take time.
Yeah, it'll take time. So we certainly wish Sean Patrick Maloney enormous success. We want a more Democratic Congress to pass the kinds of legislation we're in favor of. But it's going to be very, very tough. And there's a real question about the split in the Democratic Party and what is the better way to go with these races. But I certainly think, I will say this, he will work his rear end off to be successful in this job. He is an ambitious guy. He's a hard worker.
54 years old.
And he will do his darndest to.
The picture we had up there is with his very diverse family.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So best of luck to him. But there are a lot of questions still to be answered on this.
And of course, the immediate concern is the Georgia Senate runoffs. I watched the debate between Democrat Reverend Raphael Warnock, the pastor of Dr. King's Church in Atlanta, and Kelly Loeffler.
Did you watch the debate between Ossoff and the empty podium?
No, I just heard excerpts of that. Although I did see Ossoff emphasize, this guy I'm running against is running ads, making my nose look bigger because I'm Jewish. I mean, come on, folks. That's what you're up against with, what's the guy's name? Perdue. Anyway, Kelly Loeffler, an out-of-touch billionaire. Now, she said about 10 times, I was raised on a farm. She didn't say that it was in Illinois. Apparently, I read an article that people in rural Georgia, they don't like anybody from outside of Georgia. I'm exaggerating, but it's a big thing about who was a real Georgian, and she's not, and that could hurt her in this thing. The polls are very tight, all of them showing, tiny leads for the Democrats, and it could be pulled out, although they're already cutting polling places, of course, now for the special election on January 5th.
And registration has closed, so it's too late now to register if you're not already. Not too late, I think, to request an absentee ballot if you want to vote by mail. But yeah, they're going to screw around. They accuse Democrats of stealing the election. Wait till you see what they do in Georgia this time. Right. I'm sure that they're just plotting everything they can.
Now, let's go to the House Republicans and Matt Gaetz. Now, we told you the story last week about how the New York Young Republicans were hiding where they were going to have their annual gala. And Rise and Resist, activist group in New York with a lot of our LGBTQ friends, was on the case there, going after, trying to find out where it is, billing it as a super spreader event. So they didn't have it in New York, the New York Republicans. They went across the river to Jersey City to a place that has now been closed because they violated so many regulations. And they had not Sarah Palin as the special guest as originally promised. They had this punk, Matt Gaetz, the Florida congressman, and Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey let him have it. Roll the videotape, please.
Move forward at the other end of the spectrum. I want to briefly address the images on I can't believe this, on social media this morning from the New York Young Republican Club that allegedly snuck into Jersey City last night to hold a gala fundraiser after they couldn't find a venue in their own city due to the pandemic. So from the videos on social media and certainly this picture, there is no obvious attempt to enforce social distancing or face masks, even though wearing masks indoors in New Jersey is mandatory at organized gatherings when individuals are not eating or drinking. It is beyond the pale that anyone would willingly endanger people in another state, never mind their own. It is also beyond the pale that a member of Congress, actually go back if you could, would participate in this. And that is, I want you to go back to the group if you could, Mahan. That guy in the middle, the tall, handsome fella in the gray suit, that is Representative Matt Gaetz. And based on his past performances, it is obvious being a knucklehead is not beyond the pale for him. He was actually Sarah Palin's backup act for this event. Now, if you go to the next kind of a scene, that's Matt again, earlier this year. Kind of a scene out of Dr. Strangelove. What a fool. He and they should be ashamed of themselves. He is not welcome. I hope you're watching, Matt. You are not welcome in New Jersey, and frankly, I don't ever want you back in this state. Now, to be sure, and Pat knows this, Jersey City law enforcement is currently investigating this matter, and we will assist their investigation in any way necessary and take action as appropriate.
I do want to make one correction to what the governor said, and this is not a knock on Matt, but he's not tall. He's 5'7", and everybody in the picture squatted around him, close in, of course, without their masks on. So the real issue there, of course, is super spread. These people had absolute contempt for that. Anyway.
Well, speaking of governors and the virus, moving to Colorado, I'm a little disappointed in Jared Polis, who is recovering from having the virus himself, as is his partner or husband. I'm not sure whether they're married. But Polis...
His spouse, Marlon Reese.
Okay. Polis was asked, as other governors have been, about providing the vaccine to incarcerated people. Prisons, jails are some of the most infected places, and when prisoners are infected, guards get infected, or guards given it to prisoners, who knows? And then when the guards go home or the prisoners get out, then they spread it to their families. It's really, really important to take this population into consideration. And Polis just absolutely rejected the idea of any priority of the vaccine for anybody in prison populations. No, free people are going to get the vaccine before prisoners. And that kind of short-sighted, punitive thinking, I think, is really dangerous and bad.
And then he's also getting attacked by the right wing for quote-unquote Gestapo-like tactics in the COVID regulations.
No, they all are.
He said, as a Jewish American who lost family in the Holocaust, he was offended by the comparison. But totally agree with you about the prison stuff. I mean, you know what? Just do it from a public health perspective. Don't talk about it. Just do it, because it has to be done. It's the kind of thing that has to be done. I know it may sound politically unpopular, but it makes sense, and it's the right thing to do.
All right. In other political news, a story that I think has been buried so far is North Carolina.
Yep.
In 2017, we were fighting over HB2 in North Carolina, which was the bathroom bill, and whether
transgender people. Yeah.
Yes, and we'd elected the Republican governor, Roy. What was his name?
Moore. Isn't it? No. Roy Cooper.
No, Roy Cooper is the Democrat who is the governor now. The previous governor was a right-wing Republican who had instituted or supported this bathroom bill, and the very Republican legislature had passed it. So then there was a move to repeal at least part of it, and the new Democratic governor, Roy Cooper, struck a deal that said, if you let me repeal parts of this bathroom bill, because we're losing all sorts of business because corporations, sports teams, et cetera, are boycotting our state, I will go along with a temporary ban on local cities and towns in North Carolina passing non-discrimination laws, as some had, like Charlotte. And so that deal was struck, but that deal has now expired 3 years later. And so we're about to see in North Carolina new big fights over anti-discrimination laws being passed by local cities and towns, and who knows, the whole state. It's going to get fascinating again in North Carolina.
Well, we did have some local anti-discrimination.
Yes, but they got thrown out, repealed,
do they get reinstated? Do they have to be passed again?
I don't know the answer to that. You can perhaps look that up, but I suspect they're going to have to be passed again.
Well, I looked up the bad Republican governor. It was Pat McCrory.
Yes, Pat McCrory.
So the other side says, well, you can't pass anything that the legislature doesn't give you permission to. I mean, it's going to be a titanic fight. Well,
that's been a fight in a number of states around the country. By the way, another political footnote, a very charming ceremony in West Hollywood, California this week. We told you that the West Hollywood City Council is now majority female after the latest elections. And the most stunning election there was Seppi Shine, who came to this country as an undocumented Iranian refugee with her family, is now an out lesbian, elected to the city council of West Hollywood. She was sworn in the other night. Her wife, Ashley Shime, swore her in, and the picture we showed is of the two of them kissing at the end of the swearing in ceremony. Seppi gave a very moving speech to the city council on the occasion of her swearing in about her dedication to anti-racism and freedom and success for all. Very nice, and congratulations to her.
Some progress on the corporate front. The NASDAQ, the stock exchange, proposed to the SEC that corporate boards have at least one woman, one underrepresented person of color, or someone who identifies as LGBTQ, for a total of 2 diversity slots. Well, it's better than nothing, I guess.
Well, and one of the reasons we got there is that NASDAQ's president and CEO currently is a woman who is inclined to pursue these kinds of standards.
The Secretary of Treasury is going to be a woman, too. In Florida, a setback for trans prisoners. The 11th Circuit rejected an en banc hearing for this trans inmate, Ryan Keohane, who wants permission to dress and groom herself in accordance with her gender identity. An appeal to the Supreme Court is possible, but costly.
Probably Cohane, but I'm not sure. In better news, in San Diego, a lesbian couple lives, and one of them saw a challenge in the New York Times, a little game they were playing. New York Times asked readers to submit a 6-word summation of their reaction to 2020. This is based on an old, who made that up? There was some author who invented this game of 6-word summations. So Lauren Few submitted a 6-word summation of 2020, and her thing was, "Will you marry me, Taylor Hollenkamp?" And then she put the paper in front of her partner at breakfast, because the New York Times published this as in its list of great things they'd gotten from readers. And so her partner is looking at the paper and sees this and sort of does a double take and says, "I'm Taylor Hollenkamp."
How many can there be?
Very, very cute, and said yes, and that all got published, and it was absolutely adorable.
Yeah.
One good thing to come out of 2020.
Well, in a way, I think this is a positive story, and we skipped over this picture of in Texas, of the male student at Clyde High School in West Texas who was suspended for wearing nail polish to school. Trevor Wilkinson, 17. He called the administration homophobic and sexist. The student handbook says male students are not allowed to wear nail polish or makeup. Trevor got 68,000 people to sign a petition for him. "I'm a gay male and I'm beyond proud," he said. And again, calling the ACLU.
Now, I wish I had been a fly on the wall at that Board of Education meeting where they're laying out the rules and they say, we really need a rule that says boys cannot wear nail polish or makeup.
In my high school, you couldn't have a sideburn that went below below the earlobe. And they put you in the principal's office and sent you home if you let it grow beyond that.
We had uniforms in my high school, saddle shoes and various colored shirtwaist dresses and stuff. And we found very creative ways to mess them up. But in the end, we had to wear uniforms.
In Indiana, the wicked attorney general there, who's on his way out, Curtis Hill, who is trying to take rights away from gay parents as he leaves office in disgrace, appealed a decision to the Supreme Court about that. He now has been ordered to pay more than $19,000 after groping a state lawmaker and 3 other women at a party in 2018. It's a third of what the disciplinary commission recommended.
In better legal news, in Missouri, we told you some time ago about a lesbian couple who had been rejected from a senior retirement community called Friendship Village, which was claiming a religious orientation in order to reject a lesbian married couple. They were actually married. They are married. So they went to court over this. And the case was delayed for a long time while the Supreme Court sorted out some non-discrimination things. And when the Bostock decision came down earlier this year, saying that, in fact, federal non-discrimination on the basis of sex law included LGBTQ people and specifically trans people, but all LGBT people, the lawyers in the case went back to work, and they've now reached a settlement with the retirement community, or the senior living community. The terms of the settlement are undisclosed, but there's no statement that they're going to end up living there. Why would they want to at this point? But we don't know. We don't know if that was included or how much money they got or whatever, but that case has now been settled, presumably in their favor after the Bostock decision.
That was the Friendship Village of South County. Mary Walsh and Bev Nance were the plaintiffs, 74 and 70. And the National Center for Lesbian Rights brought the suit with some others.
In news, MSNBC has hired our old pal Jonathan Capehart as a weekend anchor on Sunday mornings, replacing Joy Reid, who has moved to her own 7 p.m. primetime weekday show. They have, what's the name of the woman they put in on the Saturday slot? Anyway, she's good. But Jonathan, as an out gay Black man in the Sunday morning slot, is a unique occupant of territory on
Still editorial writer at the Washington Post.
Pulitzer Prize winner at the Daily News when he was here in New York.
Right.
So I think we have a picture of him with his husband at their wedding or shortly thereafter, Nick Swinnett. Eric Holder performed the ceremony. Wow. So we have Rachel Maddow and Steve Kornacki working in primetime as out gay people for MSNBC, but now Jonathan, as an out gay Black man, has a Sunday morning slot.
Okay. Busted, a notorious anti-LGBT Catholic priest. We have a picture of him. Father George Rutler was caught by a young security guard, Ashley Gonzalez, at St. Michael the Archangel Church there in New York, watching gay porn. She apparently was in the room and was taking a nap on the couch or something. She wakes up and she sees him watching gay porn and doing what men do when they do that, or some men do, but usually not virulently anti-gay men like him, or I guess they do. Anyway, when she was terrified, so she started filming him watching the porn, and then he tried to sexually assault her, pushed her up against the wall. Now, this is a guy who blames all of society's ills on abortionists and sodomites. I blame them on homophobes and hypocrites. Rutler attacked Pope Francis for his milder tone on homosexuality. He'd been a host on the Eternal World TV network. He denies wrongdoing, but he's off the air.
Yeah. Sad news from South Carolina. In Mount Pleasant, a Navy petty officer, Justice Hartley, and his husband were killed in a motorcycle accident. They started an online handmade soaps business called Earth Wish. They supported Doctors Without Borders. But the striking thing here is that the Navy Times, I believe, wrote up the story of their very tragic death as a married gay couple. And that seems to have...
And we should say, in terms of the accident, they were just driving normally on the motorcycle, and
Yeah.
there's like a 3-car pileup in the other direction that pushed a car into them from the other direction, and that's how they died, and they were ejected.
We also want to more.
It was lovely to hear, they interviewed the mother back in Alabama of Justice, and, she just called him an energetic and fun kid and a family guy. They married last November. So the whole thing was heartbreaking, but handled so normally in the South, which is encouraging.
Well, also handled normally was the death of out gay pro wrestler Pat Patterson, 79 years old. He was the first out gay pro wrestler, and he seems to have been completely beloved in the community. Tributes poured in from everyone from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to John Cena to Steve "Stone Cold" Austin.
He had a 40-year relationship with Louis Dondero, who died in 1998. The WWE, which he was in, staged a Patterson Appreciation Night in his hometown of Montreal. And he said, for once in my life, I'm going to be me now. He was praised for being different in an era when it was not cool. That's a quote from one of his colleagues.
Not praised by his parents, who kicked him out of the house at 17 when they realized he was gay.
He said he had sex for the first time at 16, and he said, my God, this is what it's all about. I've finally experienced tenderness and affection. So he told his father, who used an epithet, and threw him out. But at the end of the story, they said, after he came out, a FedEx driver saw him on the street, big burly guy, jumps out, puts his arms around him and said, I'm gay too, I'm so proud of you, and gets back in the truck and drives off.
The picture we showed was of him, the blonde on the bottom left, in combat with his main rival, Sergeant Slaughter. That was a long-standing rivalry.
Right.
Still alive, also coming out on the Real Housewives of Orange County, Bronwyn. This is huge news in Real Housewives territory. She's been a very strange and wacky character on Orange County just for the last couple of years. But the first news on her, has 7 kids, and a really bad problem with alcohol. And so she's been really out of her mind a lot on the show for the last couple of years, which of course makes the drama very hot. But what has happened this year is that she's come to terms with her alcoholism, has gone clean, has been attending meetings. We've seen that on the show. And she now, after having a lot of flirtatious moments with women on the show in a sort of semi-facetious manner in the last year or two, has come to terms with the fact that not only is she a lesbian, but that her alcoholism was running away from this fact, and that she was really a mess, and that she is now cleaning up her life. And part of cleaning up her life is being honest about who she is. She and her husband, for the moment, are staying together as best friends. She has a girlfriend who you can see pictures of online. But it's a very interesting story happening there on the much maligned Housewives franchise. Congratulations to Bronwyn, who is a much more appealing character, sober and out.
You ready for some international news, or you got some other stuff?
Yes, I am.
Well, we mentioned last week that Warsaw's airport is named for Chopin, who is at least bisexual, and thought, are there any other airports named for LGBTQ people? And I went through a whole bunch of them. Most of them are not named for people, but in Rome, Leonardo da Vinci Airport in Rome.
Thank you. Good research.
No, that's from a viewer.
Oh, well, whatever. Thank you to the viewer. But speaking of Chopin Airport in Poland, in France, the Minister for European Affairs has come out, Clément Beaune, and did that by saying he is going to support the under attack LGBTQ community in Poland plans to visit one of those supposed LGBTQ free zones and will stand up for himself and those who are being assaulted and abused.
They're also getting aid in Poland from a French supermarket chain, Carrefour, which has Polish outlets, and they are pulling their advertising from the Polish state TV channel over its broadcasting messages of homophobic hate. This TV station produced a documentary called Invasion, so anti-gay that the Polish courts banned it. By the way, the protest chant in Poland these days over attacks on abortion rights and LGBTQ rights is, I think, I feel, I decide. And I think we could all pick that one up. We could get more people to think. We could probably have a better world.
If only we could convince the Trumpsters to think, because we know they feel and we know they think they decide.
All this crap in Poland is due to the alliance with the Catholic Church. And it's nice to read that support for the church, trust in the church, has gone from 58% in 2016 down to 40%, which is kind of following the trajectory of Ireland. And if only stuff like that could happen here.
Things are going in the wrong direction in Romania, where right-wing government seems to be slipping into power.
And in Indonesia, where the fiery Muslim cleric Rizik Shihab has returned from exile after dodging a pornography charge, but he's the one saying, I want Sharia law in the whole country, and he's back to cause trouble.
Very brave ex-policeman in Indonesia is challenging his firing as a gay man. We'll follow that case. Meanwhile, in Jamaica, our favorite Inter-American Commission on Human Rights has issued what's being called a scathing report on anti-LGBT laws and practices in Jamaica, saying that the 1864 sodomy law promotes violence and spreads HIV, violates human rights. They say it should be repealed. This report is the result of individuals and organizations petitioning the commission to investigate what's going on in Jamaica. I have no idea whether this will lead us to any progress, but it's very heartening to get that kind of report.
Queen Victoria signed that anti-buggery law back then.
And Bill Clinton signed the Defense of Marriage Act.
A couple of marriage notes. The Mexican state of Tlaxcala has passed marriage equality by 16-3, becoming the 19th state of 31 to adopt it. And then to our viewers in Northern Ireland, I mean, they've had same-sex marriage since January, but now you can convert your civil partnership to a marriage. 32 are expected to do it right away out of the 1,300 civil partnerships, but you don't have to if you don't want to.
And in Switzerland, the upper house of the legislature, the Council of States, has okayed a same-sex marriage law by a vote of 22-15. The lower house had already passed it some time ago. Now they have to reconcile the two versions, but this was first proposed 7 years ago. The right wing wants to conduct a public referendum next year on same-sex marriage. 80% of the people in polls support same-sex marriage, but of course, I don't trust that to hold once the right wing goes into operation with all their lies and threats. But there is potential progress on actual marriage in Switzerland.
Switzerland didn't even let women vote until the 70s.
Yeah.
In Brussels, we told you about that 30-man orgy that snared the Hungarian member of the European Parliament, and he had to resign over it. It was apparently a daddy orgy broken up by the police under COVID rules, because these things are allowed in Brussels, but not because of COVID. When the cops showed up, some of the guests, quote, tried to unzip the pants of the police because they thought that the raid was part of the orgy.
Love that. I think they ought to try that on cops everywhere and see.
We have a picture of this guy's downfall. This guy, what's his name? Joseph Zajer. He was commemorated by a street mural in Rome highlighting Hungarian hypocrisy about this because the guy is anti-gay, and the drain pipe that he used to flee the party now has a plaque on it in Brussels. So street artists are taking advantage of this event.
And tell me about this guy in Lithuania, because I could only read the headline, not the story. An anti-gay lawmaker in Lithuania.
I'm not going with that. He's an anti-gay lawmaker, and there's a picture of him with a man without his shirt on behind him, and moving into the picture. Well, who knows?
People are going too far.
Putin, doesn't wear a shirt.
All right, moving on. In Iran, a woman who's a former vice president for women's affairs has been sentenced to 2 years in prison because she posted online a United Nations poster about families that happen to include same-sex families. So now she's going to prison. She was accused of propaganda against the regime, encouraging corruption and prostitution. She will appeal this sentence, but that's where it stands at the moment.
So with the Tokyo Olympics coming up in July, maybe, Human Rights Watch is demanding an end of sex testing of female athletes, calling measuring and restricting natural testosterone levels is abusive and harmful under world athletics. We've talked about athletes such as Caster Semenya, who have what is called differences of sexual development and are required to suppress natural elevated testosterone levels through hormone therapy or surgery. Now, what do the religious bigots have to say about this? Because they want you to be who you are, and as God made you. What do they say about this stuff?
These are people who sometimes might be defined as intersex, some of them, but there's a range of people. But the thing that's most offensive to me, first of all, they identify as women, and that's that. They talk about advantages in their genetic or hormonal makeup. They don't go to men playing basketball and say, you're too tall, you have an advantage, we're going to cut your legs off. Well, I mean, they don't. People have various physical characteristics, advantages in sports, and is as it is.
Right. Okay.
All right, AIDS news. Well, last week was World AIDS Day.
Yes.
Trump issued a proclamation. I have to tell you, it just pains me to see Trump have the huge red ribbon on the front of the White House. That is tough to take. But his proclamation acknowledged those dead from AIDS. He has yet to mention those dead from COVID, but he will mention people dead from AIDS.
Like 3,000 COVID deaths a day in this country.
He mentioned racial disparities in HIV and AIDS, but did not mention the LGBTQ community at all.
Of course not.
So thanks for nothing.
So the AIDS community, or at least some of them, are very excited about Biden's pick for the CDC. Greg Gonsalves and James Krellenstein are thrilled with Rochelle Walensky to head the CDC. She's the chief of infectious diseases at Massachusetts General and a professor of medicine at Harvard. Colleagues call her a spectacular scientist who understands the word equity and how we have to get out of the pandemic in an equitable manner. She has worked in HIV for 20 years now and has been partly responsible for bending the curve in that pandemic.
By a huge emphasis on getting people tested and into treatment, which of course are lessons that can be carried over into the COVID pandemic. So congratulations to her. We also want to note the death of someone who lived for many, many years with HIV, Miguel Algarin, 79 years old, co-founder of the Nuyorican Poets Cafe. He died of sepsis after living for many years with HIV. He is referred to as having a shifting sexual identity. I would say pansexual. But really a legendary poet, legendary.
Born in Puerto Rico and raised on the Lower East Side, where that movement, the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, was born. Okay.
So sorry to have to report his loss. Entertainment news.
Trans actor Alexandra Billings has been guest starring on The Conners, playing Robin, a supervisor.
I saw this.
All right, why don't you talk about it then?
Well, she plays the boss of Becky.
And Darlene.
Yes, at the factory where Roseanne used to work. And she's a rather tough, nasty boss, especially to Becky. And so they got into a fight about Becky being laid off, I think, or having her hours cut or something. And Becky tried to get back at her. And Alexandra ends up coming out to her as trans and saying, you know, I am out in the world. I'm proud of who I am. I have no problem, but I don't always talk about it at work. And it was a pretty unusual and stunning moment.
Now, I understand she quit her job, the character did, over a forced drug test.
Yes, because she didn't want to have to be outed at work, and she wanted to maintain her dignity and independence.
I think she's a fantastic actor. I've seen her on Broadway, and of course she was in Transparent, but Alexandra Billings.
Yeah, Becky didn't want to have to take the drug test either. But it was a notable moment on the Conners. I've been watching some movies, of course, online. I really want to recommend The Half of It on Netflix, which is a movie made by Alice Wu, who made Saving Face a few years ago. Lesbian movie with, I think, Chinese characters, women. And the half of it is a young, I still want to say Chinese, I hope I'm right about that, girl and teenager and her various adventures. The half of it, really, really good, moving, fun movie on Netflix. But I saw a wacky kind of homemade movie that is now available on Amazon Prime called I'm Moshanti, Do You Love Me? And it's about a trans person. You might say trans woman, but he uses the he pronouns mostly and seems kind of fluid in his gender. He's in Papua New Guinea. And it's all this sort of shot on an iPhone kind of video of him and his community and his friends, Maybelline and Halle Berry. They adopt some wacky names. He's a famous singer in Papua New Guinea who comes out as trans, and it covers a whole range of questions of family acceptance, his mother loves him, marriage, sexuality, Christianity, brutality against trans people there, but all in a very down-home kind of way. AIDS is in it. And in the end, he dies of a heart attack. And there is a huge local funeral for him, and local politicians come, and the community loves him. And he's just totally accepted, but very idiosyncratic. I'm Moshanti is the name of the movie on Amazon Prime. And if you're looking for something a little different, I'd recommend that. It's only an hour, and it kept me interested.
I managed to get through Mank, about Frank Mankiewicz and the writing of the Citizen Kane with Orson Welles. It was about 10 hours.
You're making me think I don't have to watch it.
It's got some great characterizations and actors in it, but as a story, I mean, it was almost, I know the story, and it was hard to follow because they jump down in time and,
I was going to watch Your Honor on Showtime, I think, with Bryan Cranston, but that got such terrible reviews. I said, I don't have to watch that.
I did watch it because I actually, I think Bryan Cranston is terrific as an actor. I may watch the second episode. I felt that the way they were planting things, it was just so obvious. It was like, a bit much.
Well, you keep me up to date on that and tell me if you think I have to tune in. I'm avoiding it at the moment.
I'll tell you if it gets any better. Speaking of Alice Wu, she was featured she was highlighted on the cover of queer40.com along with Ann Northrup and Andy Hum.
That's why I remembered to take a look at the half of it, which I had always wanted to see.
Marin Johns, who co-hosts here from time to time, we love her, interviewed us and covers over 25 years together. And if you'd like, we sent it around with to our email list. You can go to queer40.com and read it. And if you would like to honor our silver anniversary, you could go to gayusatv.org to make a tax-deductible donation. How's that?
It's true. As of February, as you reminded me in that piece, 25 years together doing this show. And then, of course, there were 4 years in the late 80s, early 90s when we worked at Hetrick Martin together. It seems unbelievable.
Was it only 4 years together at Hetrick Martin?
Yeah, 87 to 91.
They were very intense years. We were on the education staff, and we would go out sometimes 3 boroughs in a day, all day long, talking to high school students or youth serving professionals about AIDS and HIV. And we just never stopped because things were so desperate in 1987 when we started.
And homosexuality, because people didn't want to hear about AIDS because they said it was a homo disease. And we said, oh, okay, we better address this. So we would do, hi, I'm your local lesbian, blah, blah, blah.
We do want to let you know about a film that's coming out called Surviving Silence, about a high-ranking lesbian who played a reluctant role in the expulsion of Colonel Greta Kammermeyer from the Army National Guard, and how this high-ranker, Colonel Patsy Thompson's actions in the military court led to Kammermeyer's reinstatement in federal court. It's at the Commonwealth Club on Friday, December 11th at 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific, with Thompson, her wife Barbara Brass, Kammermeyer, attorney Mary Newcomb, and Secretary of the Army, former Eric Fanning, out gay. So go to commonwealthclub.org or sign up for our email, because we can give you the link about how to watch it online.
And one more, Deep in Vogue. I've been hearing about this movie making the film festival rounds. It's about the voguing community in Manchester, England. So the racial makeup is a little different. It's mixed and varied, but there are a lot more white people voguing in Manchester than you might have thought. But it's available on a lot of platforms, Amazon Prime and others. I had mixed feelings about it, but it's certainly a different point of view on the voguing community.
I meet a lot more white Jehovah's Witnesses when I'm in England. Not that those racial bounds. We have 30 seconds. It's been great to be with you. We're going to keep doing this through, till we can't. We just can't.
For any number of possible reasons. But thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week, and that's it for this week.
Take care. Bye-bye.